Good evening, Zambia, and welcome to another segment of Zambia Goes to the Polls 2026. Wherever you are catching us from, whether it's within Zambia or across the borders in the diaspora, would like to say welcome to the program again and hope we can go through and help you make a decision as the polls come in less than 6 weeks. In the studio this evening, I have a very interesting guest. He is a diplomat, he is an economist, he's a family man, and he's a politician. This is no other than Mr. Muhabi Lungu. I'll be bringing him on set in a few seconds, but for the meantime, I want us to listen to this song to ease us into the program. This is Kefa Semenya with the Zipping Combo. Let's listen to the tune. the studio is a very, unmistaken face in politics in Zambia. He is known from way back, from cover to cover, like they would say, like a hot knife through butter. Mr. Lungu, welcome to the program this evening. Welcome to Zambia Goes to the Polls.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I'm very grateful to be here.
Indeed.
And good, I don't know whether it's morning or evening, to all of the viewers. And it's always a pleasure to have a discussion.
Thank you very much. Must I say that you look resplendent today in a dark gray suit and the dotted, a necktie? What was the big occasion before we came over to the studio this evening?
I'm trying to compete with you.
Oh my God.
You're looking immaculate. Yeah. No, but I've had a marathon today.
Yes.
I was on Diamond TV in the morning. I was on Power FM in mid-morning, and now I'm here. And basically, I'm doing all of this as an advocate for the ticket of Brian Mundubile and Makebi Zulu.
That's amazing.
I'm happy to do it. I think that they're a good team, and they need all our support.
That's amazing. Yeah. Now, tell us about yourself, just in brief. I know I have known you from my college days. I was a young teen, a young rookie, way back in 1991 when Zambia returned to multi-party politics, and the giant called Kenneth Kaunda, the founding father of the nation, who had ruled Zambia for about 27 years. He was omnipotent and omnipresent, but all of a sudden he fell under the heavy weight of democracy.
Yes.
But there is one person that still remains clear and vivid at that particular time, when many were scampering away like chickens, like a turtle on a hot fire. You decided to stay in and work with Dr. Kenneth Kaunda. What were you doing when the ship was sinking, when the giant was falling?
Yeah, well, actually, I wasn't on the UNIP side in 1991. I was a University of Zambia student, and I was part of the student movement. And I was actually very MMD. The one who stuck it out with my dad was my dad, because he was a senior civil servant at the time. He was chief of protocol to KK at the time. But I was on the other side. I was at the first MMD convention in 1991. I monitored those elections with the Carter Center and the Zambia Monitoring Independent Team. I organized the civic and volunteer mobilization that actually observed those elections under the auspices of ZIMT. So I was actually on the other side. I also wanted plural democracy. I wanted multipartyism to come. But I went to work with him after he left power, and a lot of people sometimes mix that. Okay,
please.
I went to him.
Just do the clarification.
Yes, I went to him in 1994. And before that time, when President Chilwa won, I was actually offered employment by President Chilwa himself.
Really?
Yeah, which I declined. For maybe one day we'll be able to discuss
this. Yes.
And after I came back from my master's, I was recruited by Major Wezi Kaunda, Rapson Chongo and others, Stanley Muntanga, to join the Kaunda side. And one of the talking points that they had for me, which I had completely believed, was that the MMD at that point had made a number of promises regarding democracy and many other things that they wanted to do. And quickly enough, they had reneged on those. If you remember, that people like Akashamba Tombekushitalewanika and Baldwin Kumbula, Emmanuel Kasonde had already left, and they were saying, these are not the things that we had promised. And I was one of those who felt that we had not achieved what we had promised to do as young people who wanted the MMD to take this country to the next stage. And so I went on the other side in order to oppose, so that we can put President Chiluba in a position where he can begin to fulfill those. So it is during that period that, again, I think a lot of, I don't know whether it is fame or notoriety. Yeah. So,
but it was not the best time to be with Dr. Kaunda. It was not very fashionable.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't
but
fashionable.
Felt the compaction.
I felt that the reason why I wanted change in 1991 was not against Dr. Kaunda as a person.
Yeah.
I felt this was about systems, and I felt that in a lot of ways he was being vilified and mistreated, and that he could be able to help revive UNIP at the time, because I've always believed, and if you're a Democrat, political parties are supposed to lose power when they lose favor of the people. But if they are listening to the verdict of the people, they're supposed to reform, they're supposed to regroup, they're supposed to have change the leadership.
Indeed.
And then re-offer themselves to the political process. Unfortunately for us, every political party that has left office has subsequently been vilified to the point that the ones who have won power have done everything possible to obliterate it. And this is what has happened to... Yes,
that's an interesting point that you raise, and we will get deep into that political discussion along the way. But like I said, I have the privilege of having known you for quite some time.
Yes,
and even having the privilege of knowing you personally.
Yeah.
But some of our viewers out there
within
Zambia and outside, they do not know. So I just wanted to know, in the interest of brevity, if you can tell us a little bit of where and when was Muhabi Lungu born? Where did he go to primary school, secondary school, university, or universities? Up to this point. Briefly, as you look into the camera there. And
all right. Well, my life has been one of, I think, enormous advantage and one of privilege. And I'm very grateful to God, first and foremost. And I'm also grateful to the opportunities that my own country has given to me. So I was born in a village. And a lot of people don't believe that when I tell them. I was born in Lundazi. And for the first 8 years of my life, I grew up there. Then my dad called me with my grandparents. Then my dad called me and...
Tell us a little bit about your dad. Because like for some of us who are students of politics, we know that he was in the public service.
That's right.
What did he do in the public service, from what position to what position, when he unfortunately passed on and left us?
Well, my dad was both a civil servant and a politician.
Yes.
Yeah, so
briefly,
so briefly, he was in the civil service and up to the level of ambassador. He served in a number of countries. Then he rose up to the issue of permanent secretary. Then he retired. Then he joined politics and was member of parliament for Lundazi for 15 years. And during the whole of those 15 years, he was either the deputy speaker or the second deputy speaker. And for about 2 years, he was the Minister of Home Affairs under Rupiah Banda. When he died in 2016, he had just left office as Deputy Speaker for the National Assembly.
Let's get back to you now.
Yeah, that's right.
We have tried to put that perspective
in perspective.
People can also see where your political acumen is coming from.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So I was born in Lundazi, started my grade 1 in Lundazi, and then thereafter I have attended some 10 schools, I would say. So here in Lusaka, I attended Thorn Park for grade 2. I attended grade 3 to 4, North Mid, and then from grade 5 up to grade 9, second half of grade 9, in New York. 2 schools there, PS 158 Elementary School in Manhattan, Wagner Junior High School in Manhattan. Then my dad was transferred to Canada. Then I finished my high school, grade 13 diploma at Confederation High School in Canada, in Ottawa, Canada. Then my dad was transferred to England. And then I started my university there. I was at the University of North London. But before I could finish that, my dad was recalled. After more than 8 years in the diplomatic service. And then I came to the University of Zambia. I did my first degree in there, double major in economics and political science. Double major. A lot of people don't think that there was a facility for a double major at the University of Zambia, but I did a double major.
Yeah, political science
and economics.
Yes.
And then I went immediately after that. I had a scholarship from the British.
Is this the Chevening?
Yes, the Chevening Scholarship. In those days, it wasn't called Chevening. I think it was called Foreign and Commonwealth or something.
Yes, Foreign and Commonwealth.
Yeah, later on it became Chevening.
And which university did you
I went to the University of Leeds. And I did development economics there. You know,
this is your master's.
Yes, my master's. Yeah. I was offered an opportunity to go do a doctorate in the U.S., but I declined. I wasn't sure at that point where I wanted to be. I wanted to be an academic. I wasn't sure.
Indeed. And which year is that now, when you are finishing your master's?
I finished my master's at the end of 1993.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, so it's a while
Just
ago.
after the change of the return to multiple.
Yeah, immediately with government, when President Chilua offered me, one of the reasons I think I had the courage to decline is that I had all of these issues already lined up for me. The Americans wanted me to go to the US, which I did, and the PhD.
Yeah.
But I went first to the US under a program called Young African Leaders Project.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then I came back. Then I went to England. Then I came back, and I was supposed to proceed, but I said, no, let me just first see what my options. I wasn't really convinced that I wanted to be a doctor, and I don't regret it.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't.
No regrets over that.
Yeah, I don't. No, I have no regrets over it. I had other opportunities from the Americans also to go to the Kennedy School and whatever, and there were offers, which I declined and other things. So I came back and I was lecturing at the University of Zambia in the School of Development Studies, and third year I lectured for a number of years a course called Ideologies in Development, which is basically development economics. And as a part-time, I was teaching A-level and O-level economics at the Lusaka International School. At that time, it was the only premium school, so to speak, it was the apex in the private sector. And it was during that time that I got recruited to be special assistant for KK.
Let's hold that thought right there. Now you see the schools you've been to and the international exposure you have had. I suppose that's why people can't believe that you were born in a village in Lundazi and spent your first 8 years. I suppose it's the changing dynamics. But now, fast forward. You are in Tonse Pamozi Alliance. Just tell the viewers out there, what party do you belong to and what role are you playing in the Tonse Alliance movement?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I am Secretary General of the Zambia We Want, a political party that is not very old. I think we're now in our third year. Whose president is Kapembo Simbao.
Indeed.
Who beat other candidates in
of a million miles starts with one step. So
that is right. And then after that, we were part of a coalition of other opposition parties, which included the Heritage Party, included ULP, which is led by Sakuya Skota, and others. And we came together in a group called We Are One Zambia Alliance. And again, we went to the elections, each political, and UNIP, of course, Bishop Trevor Mwamba. We went to in an election, and again, at that elections, Kapembo Simbao won. Emerged as winner and beat I think 4 other candidates, including Brian Mushimbe, who was part of the organization. He was also a participant.
He was also in the race.
In race, and Simbao beat him.
Yes.
I also stood. I was nominated to stood, and I won the position of Secretary General. Now, I think that what is most fundamental for your question is that why are we supporting the Tonse Alliance, and particularly Brian Mundubile and Makebi Zulu?
That's correct.
Is because the view of the Zambian we want from the very beginning, the view of Woza from the very beginning, was that we were under no illusions that we on our own would be able to win the presidency. And we had always been fighting that we should try and create a larger coalition of as many political parties as possible, and then identify who would be our flag bearer. Now, many of us, even before we elected my brother and friend, Kapembo Simbao, together with Ambassador George Chilumanda, who'd been working together on this, we were very clear from the very beginning that out of the candidates that had applied in the PF, way back when they first opened up the thing, we were very clear that Mundubile was the best.
Why was that? Why did the light shine on him from where you were standing up? What made it so crystal clear that Mundubile
was a real deal?
Yes.
Well, I think that there were a number of factors. He looked sober. He had the experience. He had been leader of the opposition. And from outsiders looking at him, he looked like he was doing very well. He had been chief whip. He was a provincial minister of Northern Province, and really he looked solid. We knew that he was a chartered accountant, and that he was a lawyer and an accomplished lawyer, and I think that was quite evident. Okay,
the characteristics
of a good person. The other one which I like to share is that unlike Muhabi Zulu, who I knew a little bit longer, I've known Muhabi Zulu
much longer than
oh,
is that so?
That's right, and maybe it's a story for another day.
Indeed.
Nice guy, very nice.
Yeah,
now he's my he will be my vice president.
Can you believe that?
Yeah. So, but he's a nice guy. I'm saying this in an affectionate way. Yes. Because sometimes we must humanize politicians.
Exactly.
Sometimes we always put him on a pedestal. But these are people who want to be with you to serve with you. So I knew Muhabi, but Mundubile, I only knew him because I'd heard that there was leader of the opposition, but I didn't know who he was.
Indeed.
And the first time I met him,
opposition chief
and I was out of the country.
Minister, yes.
And I was at the country, so I was hearing.
I think you and I were in the foreign service.
In the foreign service,
I was in the DRC.
I was in the DRC and in New York.
And in New York.
Yeah, and so I just heard of him, and a few times I would see his clips of him speaking in Parliament, and I thought, okay, this guy looks good. Yeah. So on a personal level, the first time I met him was I had come back from New York to attend the funeral of Arabi in 2021. And Brian Mundubile was sitting, I think, 2 or 3 rows in front of me, and I was sitting with another colleague of mine who was in the diplomatic service by the name of Mkela Mtukwa. And when the church service finished, we're now about to go to the graveside. Brian Mundubile stood up from where he was and walked back to greet me.
Yes.
My assumption that he recognized who I was. As you say, I've been around for quite a while.
Yes.
So he came back.
Familiar face.
Yes. So he came back. And we had a chat. He didn't introduce himself.
Yeah.
I think he assumed that I knew who he was. So we spoke a few. He was very, very polite, very friendly.
Yeah.
And
very affable.
Very affable. That is the word. And I thought that. I think I know this guy, but I wasn't sure. Okay,
whether you did that,
I wasn't sure whether
it was happened.
So I said, So I asked a colleague of mine. I said, well, I'm not very sure, but he quickly said, this is Brian Mundubile, I said, okay. Now, for me, that means a lot.
Yes.
For me, it means a lot. Because I've always said that the problem with Zambian politicians is that when they have a position, even if it's a little position, let alone a big position like leader of the opposition, because you're at cabinet level.
Exactly.
Okay? That the problem with Zambian politicians is that they are very arrogant.
Exactly.
And
do you know me?
Do you know me? And the rest of us must go to them and say, oh, your greatness. The way our president behaves. And a lot of us Zambian politicians are like that.
That's the way our president behaves?
Totally. I think he is, and I don't mean it from an insulting point of view.
Just
I think that out of the 7 presidents that we've had, he's the most arrogant.
Why do you say so? Any 2 or 3 reasons?
No, because he's just so arrogant. First of all, he thinks he knows it all. He thinks that the rest of us are just dumb. And even people who are more educated than him, he thinks that the rest of us must kowtow to him, and that when he enters a room, we all must start rolling on the ground, and so on. I mean, you can see how afraid his ministers are of him, and no one has got the capacity to challenge this man, because he's always talking, and he's always, I am the great I am. So as I said, I don't like to be abusive, and sometimes people say,
spoken down on.
I have worked with people greater than HH, and they have never given me the impression that they would dismiss you as you are of no relevance. I mean, I have met some pretty important figures in the history of this country and in the world.
And in diplomacy, you and I were in the diplomatic circles. We met presidents, we met ministers.
Yes, you meet presidents who are generals and so on.
And kings.
I can tell you that he is one of the, if I was to say 5 people who are the most arrogant, I think that he's one of them. He's just arrogant. Mundubile is completely on the opposite side. And I was saying he came to me.
Oh, yes.
And for me, that shows the decency of an individual. Because no matter how big you are, it doesn't take away from you to introduce yourself or to give some platform to someone who is below you. In this particular case, I was a deputy permanent representative in New York, and here is someone who was cabinet level and came to greet me, and he wasn't concerned about whether people would say, he's going to greet him.
And he wasn't condescending.
He wasn't condescending. He treated me as a human being.
Yes.
And for
as
me,
an equal.
As an equal. And for me, that is very important in leadership. Just as I'm saying, I'm denigrating the behavior of our current president, it's very important. Look, I don't need any validation from any external source. So even if a high-ranking presidential official or whatever thinks they're bigger than me and they want to treat me and dismiss me, it really doesn't bother me. You know, because I've seen bigger, I've associated with better. I mean, what more can you be in, rather than to be in a company of Kenneth Kaunda and the people? So it doesn't bother me. So I see in this country, yes, I see in this country little boys, little boys, to borrow the words of HH when he was being rude to his opponent. But
what do you think of that?
No, it's very sad. And that's why I'm saying it. I'm using it because I ought to not be referring to people as little boys. It's rude. Okay?
Does it show any aura of respect?
But this is what I'm saying. It shows arrogance. That those boys, Baiche, they are nothing. What they should be doing is sitting below at my feet to worship me. And fortunately, both Honorable Brian Munduwile and Muhabi Zulu have not answered him back. Because they could have been rude,
yes.
You know, or their supporters could have been rude, you know, and then if their supporters are rude, then he would have started saying, oh no, hate and whatever and so on. But as I said, you asked me about Brian. I said one was the fact that we thought he was the best. Secondly, I told you about my own personal experience to him and how you define it. But also of value. And again, as I said, I'm not trying to show off anything like that, okay? As I said, I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that life has accorded.
Exposure and all,
But one of the advantages of having the sort of exposure that I've had in life is that I'm able to assess who is a pretender and who is a real deal. Yes, I am able to assess whether a leader is a quack, okay, or whether he's a real doctor or whatever. And because of the association of all of that, I was able to ascertain that Brian Munduwile was a real deal. And that is not my own conclusion as well. It was a conclusion of my friend and brother, Ambassador Chilumanda. The alliance partners on the Zambia we won. We met and we said, we think that this is the guy. It was the conclusion of the guys in Waza, or Saki, an accomplished lawyer.
Yes, State Council, right?
Yes, that's right. State Council. President Chishala Kateka.
Yeah, she's a chartered accountant too, right?
Chartered accountant. I met her many years ago when I was sitting on a program called the Copper Belt Diversification Program, which was funded by the World Bank and was being chaired by Dr. Sixtus Mlenga. She was the project coordinator and economist as well. Bishop Trevor Mwamba, who rose up to the apex of being a bishop within the Anglican.
Well. So when I was ambassador in Germany, his wife, his wonderful wife, Ms. Masiro, was the ambassador of Botswana.
That is right. The daughter of the former president.
The former president. She was coming from Deputy Secretary General of the Commonwealth.
Yes. So,
and I visited a number of times. So I know what you mean.
Yeah. So you can
when you say that these are astute people.
These are people who have been successful in their own careers. Kapemba Simbao, one of the longest serving engineer and one of the longest serving ministers in this country. For 12 years he was minister under 3 different presidents, and has held, he's been either minister or deputy minister in 8 ministries, and a clean guy. Now all of those were able to identify Brian Munduwile as the one we should support. Now, you can't compare that with other presidential candidates, even in the opposition, who has had basically no heavyweight or any person who have
to endorse them,
to
back them, to support them, to validate them.
That is right. So the question you ask is why? Why should this individual get all of these people who are successful in their own
I mean, you have to mention yourself too. I mean, I know you are being modest. You have always naturally been modest. But I mean, you are a master's, a scholar, part academician, teacher, diplomat, economist. But you also decided that this is the real deal. And this is the real McCoy.
And I'm doing it with my whole heart.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that he's a decent person. I genuinely believe that he's got the capacity to lead. I genuinely believe that he means well. Okay. Now, obviously, And I have to be very honest with you, because I've never been a stooge of anybody in my life. Not even when I was working for KK, not even my own dad. I don't kowtow to people. I respect people, and I give them their due right within the chain of command, and I'm not disrespectful to people. But I'm not afraid of power. I've never been. So what I'm saying is that, of course, in all our evaluations of individuals, one could be wrong.
Of course,
one could be
it's
wrong.
A personal judgment.
It's a personal
based
judgment
on these boxes that you've been
because
taking.
you take, you
exactly,
know,
yeah.
and sometimes you could be fooled.
Indeed.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think that we're being fooled in this particular case.
Now, just when you've spoken about being fooled, and forgive me for taking the wind from below your wings.
Yeah.
When you're talking about being fooled, I have heard this term being used a number of times. We're moving away a little bit from Honorable Brian Mundubile to the president whom you have described as arrogant. There has been some school of thought that has a number of times said that he sort of fooled Zambians, and he sort of broke the promises that he had made regarding meal, regarding fuel, regarding fertilizer, regarding improved standard of living. I've actually heard you. I remember watching you on Diamond TV last week saying that there is a monitoring system that used to happen. I forget the real name, but you will say it yourself when you are answering. And that it has not occurred. It is more like a yardstick, like the way we have the Jesuit Center for Theological Reflection, which collects data on how much a family needs. So please, tell me a little bit about the fooling and the coming short of the glory of promises. And that monitoring of valuation system you spoke about. I remember watching you. I learned quite a lot when I watched you on Diamond TV.
So you know, as I said earlier, my brother, I am not one who uses vile language to describe people. Sometimes when you use strong words, people think that it's an insult. I said one, he's very arrogant, okay? And that is not an insult. It means that mundu amene azimvela. In our local language. Azimvela maningi atitonse we are
azimvela maningi.
Yeah, that's it. Azimvela maningi. Yes, and so on, you know. And when people talk to me, maybe if you talk to me, I'm sticking up my nose in the air. Yes, what do you want to say?
With your hands in the pocket.
And he gives that impression to people, that he expects that all of us must go talk. And for me, that's one of the other reasons I've never supported him, because if there's anything I despise in people's behavior is arrogance. And me, I know that sometimes I might have a problem with it because of all the experience you get. Sometimes you begin to belittle people, and it requires for you to be in an environment where people can remind you. So for me, my dad would remind me, you're going too much. My wife is very she would remind me. So you learn that, okay, you must treat people as human beings. He does. So that is one. The other part is the thing about the character of our current president. He seems to have an enormous thirst for revenge. You know.
Why would you say that?
No, because he doesn't forget. If you injure him, he doesn't forget. This whole issue about ethnicity is predicated on his belief that the PF were ethnically tribal and that they punished people from Southern Province. And so he justifies what he's doing in reverse. In reverse, and completely in reverse, because if the PF and President Lungu had that level of ethnic difficulties, he's taken it to this level, and he justifies it to take it to this level on the basis that you are unkind to me, to the extent that he can even go to the Southern Province and be untruthful. And start saying that if you don't vote for me, when you go on the buses and you disembark in Lusaka, you'll be beaten. Now that is being untruthful. When in this country have people from any province, whether it is from Eastern Province or from Northern Province, when in this country have people from Northwestern Province or wherever disembarked at the intercity and beaten because they've come from Central Province.
I watched that, but before we go further into that, because I've seen, like you have, I've also noticed that there is a time when he sort of basically appealed to the people in the Southern Province that he is the man that they should look at for the presidency and re-election, and not anybody else. And this culminated, to go a little further, or rather, instead of de-escalating, the issue escalated to an extent where some of his members were told not to contest or not to go independent.
Yeah.
And we've seen the ramifications have been dire. But we'll get back to that.
But that's what I'm saying, the thirst for revenge.
Indeed.
Yeah, the thirst for revenge that he seems to have is palpable. You can tell that this man doesn't forgive. And here is Gary, he disagreed with him. All these years we've never heard about Gary voting against him. He goes to Northwestern Province and says Gary voted for him, so don't vote for him as an independent. And so on. I have had personal contacts of people who know him, and if I'm pushed to the corner, I can say them, of people who have, in his perception, have somehow injured him, and he will not forget.
Yes.
So even for me, I know that with what I have said over these last few months,
since you are a vocal critic.
Yes, since I'm a vocal critic. Should he win, and I hope that he doesn't win, but I hope that Brian Munduile, the so-called small boy, will beat him soundly. He will beat the old man, because that's the language that he wants us to use.
Exactly. There has to be old boys or old men where they are little boys.
Yeah. So so I think that, and I've told my family.
Yeah.
I've told my children. I have told relatives that should the current president win, me, I'm bracing for impact.
Indeed.
Yeah, because I know they're going to review. I know they're going to review all of the tapes that I've been talking, and they will look for something to come and fix me, and I'm ready for it.
Indeed.
You know, I'm ready for it. So thirst for revenge is not good. But I can go on, and I think another time. But let me get to the matter to do with the living conditions monitoring system.
Indeed.
I was saying I think you asked me, is that I was trying to dispute these false accusations that they have made about Brian Munduile not knowing economic management and about the importance of reserves.
Indeed, this follows, I think, dear viewers, this follows the fact that there has been a lot of hula baloo in Zambia following remarks by presidential aspirant Brian Munduile that there is no need, there is no economic justification or sense to have a huge foreign reserve of about $6.5 billion in the Central Bank of Zambia when poverty levels nationally stand at more than 70%. And many people can still not eat 3 times in a day. I will let Mr. Lungu pick it up on that, because the backlash has been fast and brutal that Munduile and his team do not know
anything about numbers.
Just tell us. You are an economic development expert.
Ambassador, is that in the same video that they've been circulating around, purporting that Munduile said this, there is nowhere in that video where he says that reserves are not important.
I saw you read out the stuff. You had taken note by note. Yes, you did a transcript.
There is nowhere where he says that reserves are not important. That is one. 2, there is nowhere in that video where he says he will spend the reserves in order to pay workers, teachers.
Just repeat that.
Yeah, there is nowhere in that video where he says he will spend the reserves to pay teachers and whatever. There is nowhere in the video. You know, what he says in the video is he's making a contrast between the boastful nature of the current government to Wazungu. He actually says it. That Venango, their importance is figures. Venango, their importance is people. They go out there, Kuli Wazungu. And he meant, of course, the IMF. And not that he's against them. But we all know in our local language, when we say people go and boast their Kuli Wazungu, it is to say that they seem to believe that boasting to the IMF and the World Bank about their own achievements is more important than convincing the people that they have delivered to them. So it appears that the concentration is on pleasing external creditors and so on at the expense of the people. Again, that is not to say that he will not
cooperate or engage the IMF, the cooperative partners.
So he was saying, some young lady who I was having an interview once said, no, but he said that and I said, look, because you are deliberately agreeing to put him out of the context of what was saying, in terms of what he was saying. He said,
get him out of the truth zone. Even when there is a transcript.
Even when there's a transcript. What he said was that they are preaching and celebrating and saying that these are the achievements. He said, before we start celebrating those figures, we will make sure that all the suppliers have been paid.
Yes.
We will make sure that you are able to feel that the price of meal and so on have declined, blah, blah, before we celebrate. Before time we will do this.
Yes.
So at no point did he say this. Absolutely none. I can challenge everyone to come, and even the issue of Tilibenazo and Chito was a reference to the celebration and them going to claim that this is more important.
Yes.
Okay? So that is what I have been trying to establish to people. Now, the perspective of our colleagues has been to say that even if you start thinking about helping people, and when you are talking about reserve itself, you can't touch those reserves, or you can't whatever, which is not true, because President HH himself says these reserves are there if there is a shock to the economy.
Yes.
To use them. So that is to say
that
you can touch them. You can touch it. So they've been trying to create
a crisis in the fuel sector. You can touch them.
And I've said if there is lack of import cover for a particular area, and you can touch it.
Yes.
So he can say that, but when someone insinuates, he says he doesn't know economics.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me put that on one side and bring to you the argument in development economics.
Yeah.
Okay. Way back when, in the 40s and 60s, there is an indicator called GDP. And in those days, actually, they used to call it GNP. It was called Gross National Product.
What about GNI?
That is to do with gross income.
Okay,
yeah, gross income. So you just say,
Yes.
So now all of those are parameters of indicators or indices which show that the economy is growing and is healthy and so on. When we get into the 60s and 70s, when we are talking about the new economic order and the fact that economies can be seen to be growing and are healthy, but the inhabitants of those people who live in those economies are actually growing skinnier and poverty levels are growing up.
In the belt.
Yeah, so that while GDP is going up, but poverty levels poverty levels is increasing, or is increasing. Wellness is going down.
Yeah.
So they said, look, we need some other indicators that are important for us to determine whether the macroeconomic indicators, reserves, GDP growth, inflation, and so on, are able to have a positive welfare on the people. So many countries came up with what they call the Living Conditions Monitoring Survey. Okay. Here in Zambia, we started doing it in 1996.
The Living Conditions Monitoring Survey. Wherever you are, depending on where you come from.
Yes, that's right. So what that does is that it goes in the community and collects data to find out whether the welfare of the people is truly being affected by the positive macroeconomic data.
Yeah.
So they will ask, do you have access to cheap mini meal? Do you have access to affordable housing? Do you have access to amenable clean water? Do you have access to healthcare?
Yes.
And so they collect all of that. What are the levels of poverty in the community, in the urban areas, vis-a-vis in Lusaka? That is what the Living Conditions Monitoring Survey is supposed to do. And it is done periodically. Sometimes it's been back to back, one year after the other. Sometimes it's taken 3 years. Sometimes it's 5 years, and whatever. I would have to go back to see what the issues is. Now, when you interpose the macroeconomic data to the data that you get from the Living Conditions Monitoring Survey, you will find that there is a misalignment. Okay? In most cases, you will find that there is a misalignment. So what the government does is that uses that data to be able to affect monetary and fiscal policies on the macro side, on the macroeconomic management, to see whether there can be some form of maybe not 100%, but just some form of equilibrium. So that when you are boasting about the reserves, when you are boasting about economic growth, that in fact drop in inflation, that there is some form of correlation. That's what we would say in economy, between those macro figures and the lived experience of your population.
The reality on the ground.
So economics takes cognizance of that discrepancy. And for anyone to suggest that we must always only deal with macro matters, without that, then you don't know what you're talking about. I say that you are a Google, you just consult a Google. Okay? But over and beyond that, there are other what you might say independent initiatives, such as those that have been done by the JCTR here in the country, where the basic needs and nutritional basket. Again, as I said, it comes out of what the living condition monitoring survey was done.
While you were on the JCTR, because I've been following it before I got into diplomacy. My work as an editor-in-chief and a journalist is, if we look at the current situation, the JCTR says a family, an average family of 5 or 6 in Osaka needs at least about 12,500 kwacha to survive on basics alone. A bottle of cooking oil, a bag of sugar, and a bag of
salt. There's a basket.
And yet the average public worker earns about 2,500 to 4,000.
It is way below.
So the disparity. Now tell me. Could this be what Brian Mundovile was talking about?
That's exactly what he was saying.
When he says you have $6.5 billion, but these people are trapped in a poverty rat.
That is exactly what
beyond their means.
That is exactly what he was saying.
Tell me a little bit about that.
That is exactly what he was saying.
Do we have a situation in Zambia where people are living beyond their means, or rather in abject poverty? Given these statistics from the JCTR.
It is not a debatable matter.
Please,
okay. First of all, there are international agencies like the UN, UNICEF, and the World Bank themselves have got now some social thing in which the indicators and of Zambians living below $2 a day is
yes, I've seen that. Below $2 a day.
Some of these have been able to ascertain that urban poverty in the last few years has actually increased. In Osaka and in the Copper Belt. Now, if that is what those studies are telling you, then Brian Mundule was saying, so of what value is inflation? To say inflation. He was not saying that we will not monitor inflation. No. He was not saying that we will not manage inflation to the extent that it's single digit. What he was saying is that you are boasting of these, yet they are not filtering. So the way the UPND government is discussing the issues of inflation is as if prices have declined.
Indeed, the pump price for fuel is still the same in the last 3-6 months.
Yes,
high.
It is higher than what they found. The pump price.
I understand the price of milli-meal is higher
than what they found it.
So what's the magic one? What's the magic word here? What's the quick fix? What's the silver bullet in the reserves thing?
If prices were dropping, okay, you would refer to that as deflation. That's the economic term.
That's the economic.
Yeah, there is deflation.
The opposite of inflation.
The opposite of inflation, or the rate of inflation. So meaning that there is actually a decline. So if the price of meal was at 300 or 100, let me say it was 300, it has dropped to 200. That is deflation.
Deflation.
Yeah, and if it continues going down, it is deflation. Okay, but we are not talking about deflation. Okay, the prices of all basic commodities is still far more expensive than they were 5 years ago. So they have moved. Okay, so to boast that the rate itself has slowed and that in itself is okay is, I think, deceptive. So what Brian was saying was in effect to say that yes, figures are important, but you don't eat figures. And I gave an example.
Indeed.
And I gave an example at a show that I was earlier here. I said, look, let's go back to 2011.
Yeah.
You can recall 2011.
Too much. Yeah.
Like
it was yesterday.
That is right.
That is the race between the King Cobra, Michael Sata, and our late dear President, Rupia Banda.
Yeah, and I was at ZDA at the time. I was at the...
you were director.
I was director of investment promotion, privatization, and the multi-facility.
Some people sometimes forget. They think you've just been steeped into politics. I suppose it's because of that omnipotent figure you had with...
my association with KK puts me
sort of obliterated everything else.
No, I've been a technocrat. For a good chunk of my life, as much as I've been a political player.
We must do a profile story one of these days.
Yes, I've been a technocrat. So I was at ZDA at the time. And not only that, before that, I was economic advisor to the government of the Republic of Zambia, employed by the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, on a program which I used to report to the economic advisor to Mwanawasa.
Yes.
So when I say these things,
you know what you're talking about.
I am not a Google economist, and I'm not trying to put anybody down.
You're not trying to sugarcoat stuff.
I have academic background for this, as well as practical knowledge.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is that in 2011, while I was at ZDA, I do recall that in 2011, when RB was standing,
was seeking re-election.
The indices, the macroeconomic indices were better than they are today.
Yes.
Okay, and I can mention a few of them.
Please do go ahead, because I remember the
growth
was
7%.
Yes.
We've never reached 7%.
We haven't gone beyond that.
Yes. In fact, some of the reports actually put GDP growth in 2011 at 7.3%. Okay. The rate of inflation was single digit. Yeah? It was, I think, 5 point something or something.
5 point something
and so
6. Yeah.
The exchange rate to the dollar
was about
4.8.
Yeah, 4.8.
4.8 point.
Yes.
The debt that we had was about $1 billion.
It
is now 14 billion. Yes. Domestic.
Is it 14 billion now? I hear it should be something, but we can verify this. It should, because it seems to have doubled from 12 billion that President Edgar Lungu left to, I think, to about 18 billion.
Now, it may be. The last figure I saw.
The official one.
Yes, that's right. And of course, we can have another, because
we can have another discussion.
We can have another discussion on this specific case.
It's higher.
So I was saying that.
Bottom line.
The indices in 2011 were better than they are now.
Yeah.
And I was involved in part of the campaign because I was a candidate in 2011. And we were saying as a MMD how good this figure are.
How rosy the
government is. And you know what it took to destroy?
Yeah.
For Mike Osata to go out to the public and said more money in your pocket.
More money in your pocket.
And that figure of more money in your pocket is not an empty slogan. It was saying that, okay, look, there are all these economic
statistics,
but do you have money
in your pocket?
Basically, that's what he was saying, which is exactly what Munduvila was saying. Do you have money in your pocket? Because you're not being paid, you supply maize, and yet somebody is claiming that you are huge reserves. Yeah, that's right. And so that was the basis of that. And just like then, Rupiah Banda, with a very, very good economy, through macroeconomic figures, lost an election. Lost an election to Mike Osata. And this should.
What were the reserves then?
I can't remember what they were, but I do know.
3 billion also.
No, but you see, it's again. I must take you back a little bit. Okay.
Yes.
I've seen people who have listed. The reserve of countries. They've put Egypt, whatever.
Yeah, South Africa,
and so on. Yeah. That is comparing an orange to a banana.
Yes.
Because you don't compare reserves in terms of just physical quantum, whatever. Because the reserves are calculated on the basis of the size of your economy,
the size of the population too.
Population, and what it would take in order for you to cover your imports at a given time. So what you measure is actually what do they cover in terms of the size of the economy and your export bill. So and if you look at the IMF, they say that anywhere between 3 to 6% is acceptable. So your policy can be adjusted in terms of whether you want your reserves to exceed 6, 10 or whatever, depending on what your overall long-term objective is.
Yes.
If you think that you have to tend to medium-term or short-term objective, you can decide that perhaps we don't need reserves of 10 months. And we will keep reserves of maybe 4 months. So you adjust so that perhaps you use some of the resources that you have to take care of other issues within the economy, which might give it lubrication in order for you to double your reserve at a later stage. So the way it has been put by our colleagues in the UPND is to suggest that there is no connectivity between reserves, statutory policy rate and so on, with the general operations of the economy, and then down to the general price levels which affects people.
Exactly.
They've created a demarcation that there is no interface, which is not true.
While you're on that, because you have already explained, and we will come back to this, but we just lessen the burden on the figures and the statistics and the economics. We will come back to this nevertheless. I was just wondering, given all these examples you've given of the other man's arrogance and the other man's humility, characteristic, and very well grounded, Can you say whether you are confident that he's got the characteristics or ingredients that makes a good economic manager? Because, like you gave an example of Michael Sata bursting the bubble of RB by simply coming with more money in the topic, in your pockets, yes, more money in the pockets. What do you think? Because you are a development economist also and a political scientist. Where do you see, after reading the manifestos, which I've seen you have come with and summaries, where do you see Munduvile driving Zambia, the Zambian population, 70% of which is in abject poverty, with poverty levels rising even in the urban areas? Do you see any improvement under Brian Muntalwa Munduvile in the first 1 year or in the first 2 years? Because you have sat together and you have agreed on certain fundamentals and on certain plans that we're going to create so many jobs, we're going to reduce poverty here. Tell me, what is the positive outlook when you look out there? What should the Zambian voters, the 8.7 million voters, the youth apparently making up 60% of the voters? I know you've done some analysis.
We have done some analysis, yes.
What do you think? What should they wake up to on August 13 and get motivated to vote?
Look.
The ones that haven't had a meal.
The accusation.
The ones that can't afford to put gasoline in the car. The ones that are depending on the gas. Yes.
The accusation which the UPND and the surrogates have been trying to portray is that the alliance doesn't have any plan. It doesn't have a manifesto. And that therefore Munduvile and Makebi Zulu are speaking out of their head without any reference point, which is not true. So I brought this manifesto. I brought 4 of them of alliance partners. So there is this manifesto from the Pamosi.
If you can just show it up
if I can show
the camera.
And they can see it. It's one. That is one.
That's one, yes.
There is this manifesto with Brian Munduvile's picture on it, which has been done by technocrats, by former PSs, former diplomats, academics. They sat down and looked at this. There is this manifesto. It is here. There is this manifesto of the People's Party manifesto. This is the party which Dr. Sebastian Copeland.
He's an Oxford scholar.
He is an Oxford scholar who works for Mwanawasa for a long time. He was special advisor. He did other things. He's been in Parliament for a while. A very clever man.
Yes. He thinks on his feet. I like him.
There is this manifesto from the Zambia we want, and I can tell you that the Zambia we want probably has got the greatest concentration of people who have been technocrats and so on. It is led by Dr. Ponga, who was at the UN, who was at the Commonwealth.
Dr.
Auxiliary Ponga, as the head of the party. There is Simbao, as I said,
Engineer Simbao.
Myself, there's George, Ambassador, and a plethora of people who some of them have advisors. And all of these are what you might say the basis upon which the manifesto of the NRPUP as the consolidated political party that we're putting forward with the Kanyale, and so on, is drawing from. There is an attempt, not an attempt, there is a process which is almost concluded now, which has harmonized and taken the most essential elements of each of those.
Because there should be similarities, I'm sure. Because you all want to reduce poverty, I know.
That's right. But beyond
you all want to do GDP growth, I am sure.
But those are. But there's it goes even beyond that. You know, within the spectrum of political ideology and economic ideology, there is a pendulum. There is well, let me call it a pendulum.
A pendulum, yes.
But you can also call it a horizontal line from right to left. So if you are rightist, you are fully blown unbridled capitalism. If you are to the very left, you are Fred Membe there who believes in socialism.
Indeed.
Majority of all of these political parties have said we will take a centrist approach.
We will be in the middle.
We will be in the middle.
We shall take the best.
We shall take the best on both sides, which is what countries like the Scandinavian countries, China has taken.
Yes.
That will
China is both socialist and capitalist.
We will be pragmatic.
Indeed.
In the manner in which we execute our economic policy. We believe that the private sector shall still be the dominant force, but that there are times when there is market failure where the state must get involved over and beyond just facilitating the environment, but must get all of them. So one of the key policy frame of the alliance is we have recognized that there is need for greater participation and ownership of the resources by locals, by indigenous people. And when I say indigenous, I'm not talking only about black people, but those people who are Zambian, whether they are white Zambian, whether they are Indian Zambian, whether they are whatever, but they are Zambian because some of these have been brought in there, but also to ensure that it is not only for some of our colleagues who are second, third generation, but what about Zambians who have been here with their parents since Chakuti.
Since before independence. Since before 1964.
So, the manifesto recognizes that there has been too much of a swing by the UPND to the right, where they are saying all the mines can be owned by foreigners, that we don't even care if we don't disclose to the Zambian people how Mopani and so on was sold. Would
you like to discuss a little bit on Mopani? I know we are still talking on private capital and but there's always been concerns about how the assets of Mopani were disposed. Some say the company that got Mopani never paid a cent. I am not sure whether that is true. Others even say rudimentary, that it didn't even have a website a month before.
No, that is, and that's why
so please tell me about, since you mentioned it. And
that's
then
one of the reasons
you can touch a little bit also on Konkola Copper Mines, KCM, owned by Vedanta.
That is the reason why I raised it. And from this perspective, I wanted to raise the fundamental issues of not so much how it was done, but what it meant, because clearly we as Zambians are not participants. You know, we are not participants. We're supposed to be participants, and we can be participants. Nobody should ever tell you that we cannot find some form of financing arrangement in which the locals could be participants of mining houses such as those. Okay? And I think that this is really, really fundamental, to the extent that we must also know basically who is involved in this, which we don't know. And you know why we don't know? Because they breached the law which says that you have to go to Parliament. To
Parliament, if you want to dispose of a state or national asset.
That's right.
You got to get a note.
You've got to get parliamentary approval. And they didn't get it. But that is, I don't care what you Zambians think, even if this thing has to be given to people that are far removed from us, we don't mind. You just sit around and when they start contributing money and the reserves are going up, you should be happy. Basically, that's what being told. So that is one key policy frame. We're all very clear about that.
Indeed.
You are going to look at
I think I've understood the way you've taken it step by step.
That's right. Then the second one is this, that we all know that one of the greatest problems in this country now is that of generating sufficient employment. Okay? So even if the economy is growing, okay, because of the structure of the economy, where jobs are being created are those jobs that are just being generated by government. And we have said that we will
teaching jobs, servicemen and women.
Which is good, we're not saying that. But
we need security, we need teachers.
All of these manifestos are saying we have to create specific interventions in which we will generate more than a specified quantum of jobs for young people and for women in general. So all of those who want a vision of a better country should wake up on that morning and go and vote, because this is one of the issues that we're going to do. And what we are saying is that those jobs are not only going to be for the Eastern Province.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are not going to concentrate on the Eastern Province and start creating justifications for it. We are not going to say that we will only create and find justifications for the Northern Province.
For the Northern Province.
We're talking about the whole country.
Yeah.
Okay, in Northwestern, in Western, and in Southern. And the president has specifically said, the presidential candidate has specifically said that if you give me the opportunity, we will look at the review of mining policies for small scale, and if need be to give some of these concessions to small and medium scale, we will do it. He said that at the rally in Kitwe.
Yes.
He was very specific on this issue.
I think he repeated the same issue in Makululu.
That is right.
Yeah.
So that is one of the directions that the ticket has already taken, and I mean it. Thirdly, all of these recognize that our democracy has been sliding and getting worse and worse and worse. So instead of improving the constitution upon where Lungu left, because President Lungu actually did a good thing for the constitution, and a lot of people don't give him sufficient credit.
No, you're not the only one saying this, but very few. I've heard State Councilor John Sangwa repeat this a number of times. He said you can fault President Lungu over a lot of issues, but over the constitution, he did a great job. John Sangwa, State Council, has said that it stood as one of the best constitutions up to this date, before Bill 7 came into
and that's where I was going.
Yes.
He introduced the 50+1. No one
tapped him on the...
He did it.
Yeah.
He was able to put a running mate, which reduces his power in having a number 2 who has some level of security, security of tenure.
Yes.
So that if you've got a person who is principles, will be the chief advisor to the president, to advise without fear.
Yes.
Okay?
Because they cannot be sacked.
Yes. That is President Lungu.
Yes.
He was able to put a fixed date for election there, which we'd all been crying for. He was able to abolish deputy ministers and things like that.
It was a brave.
It was very brave for him. Instead of taking the constitution further, the UPND has brought us backwards. They've brought a proportional representation system, which is not tied to a parliamentary system but tied to the presidential, in order to increase the powers of the presidency. Okay, and some other issues that are problematic in this constitution. So, the platform of President Mundubira and Makebi Zulu are saying, even in their manifesto, because this is not, it's there in everyone, but it's also that we will want to deliver a constitution that is people driven, that all of us have talked, and we will be able to deliver this in a time frame which will be unrelated to the electoral calendar.
Yes, or to the tenure of the president.
That is right.
The power of
that
the
is an undertaking.
The privileges of the president.
When we were signing the agreement with Tonse, we said to them, look, we are not going to demand for any position, although they've honored us. I mean, President Simbawa and myself are heading Lusaka. Ambassador George Chulumanda from our port is heading Luapula.
Oh yes, I've been checking.
That's
doing some amazing job.
Who was chairman of WAZA, is now the interim chairman of Tonse. So they have accommodated us.
Indeed.
But when we were
despite the fact that you never made any demands.
That we didn't make any demand. But about positions. But we did say that in this document and in the documents which we had signed as WAZA, we had a social contract, we had a structure of it. We said these matters are important to us: the constitution, the sovereign wealth fund, blah blah blah. This one. Can you accommodate this? And they said, we have this basically the same things in our constitution.
Indeed. We believe in the same ideas.
We believe, and we are going to do this.
Yes.
So I've given you three things. But maybe let me conclude one on the cost of living. The
cost of living, please. It's the elephant in the room.
It's the elephant in the room.
In fact, one expert from the United States was saying when many Zambians go to vote on August 13, firstly, they will be thinking mostly of their stomach.
Basically that.
Whoever is coming, are they bringing in more food, like Sata's, more money in the pocket?
Your pocket.
And by the way, one thing you didn't finish on President Sata is that he came and gave public workers, he lived up to his promise, he came and gave them 100% increase in wages. Within the first 100 days.
Yes. And he also, if you remember, he also raise the minimum wage,
yes,
minimum wage for the ordinary person.
Exactly.
So these were real live actions.
Yeah.
And there are some who might say, oh no, later on we had a debt. The debt was not caused by those policy issues. You know,
we borrowed to make roads,
that is right, and things like that, and you can discuss this other issue. Yes. And I don't want to create the impression to you that everything went well in so far as the money which was borrowed. But I wanted to just say that there is a way in which you can make promises about the welfare of people and be able to keep them. So we will focus on ensuring that we reduce the cost of living. And there are ways in which you could do it. One of them is to be able to reduce the cost of affordable housing. And one of the ways you do it is to ensure that you have a situation where you meet the gap of the number of shortages of housing in the country. Okay, and it can be done. It can be done,
and that also creates jobs, doesn't it?
It creates jobs.
When you're trying to narrow this gap,
yes, that is right.
It creates jobs because there's going to be massive construction. The whole country is going to be a construction site.
And we have said that we will concentrate in ensuring that the agriculture sector is more efficient. Right now, we are having a situation where per hectare we are producing maybe 3 metric tons per hectare. In Malawi, they do 8 metric tons. And we've said that we will ensure that we increase the yield per hectare. Now, that will not only increase the ultimate figure at the top, but it means that the cost of reducing a bag
it will push down the price of
push it down, and it has been done in this country before. Okay, so these are the issues that we are promising. It is not just things plucking it from the air, but they are in the manifesto. Now let me get you to the clincher. I call it a clincher. Where there is a leader who recognizes that they don't know everything, where the process is consultative, where you bring in other people to sit down and be able to see this thing from a different angle because you are not having the view that I know it all. At that moment, there is initiative, innovation, creativity in order to drive the country forward. And so, because Honorable Munduvile is a person who consults, who listens to others, who doesn't say, I know it all, in opposition to our current president, I know that at this basic level, they will be the oils of the machinery of an innovative system that carries everybody along, including those who will be beneficiaries of the system. So I am convinced that we'll be able to do this, and I think that people should go out there and vote.
It's great to see the confidence, but some people, some critics are saying the kind of damage that has been done to the Zambian economy, to the Zambian governance system, to the Zambian parliament, to the Zambian judiciary, to the Zambian executive is so humongous. It will probably take a lot of time to ever repair it. Do you think your team with Honorable Brian Mondovile and other alliance members have the stamina to rise to the occasion and, mend all these ills that they say have allegedly occurred in the last 5 years? For instance, the constitution, the mining sector, and agriculture. No,
I'm naturally an optimistic person, but my optimism is not based on just ideological feel-good kind of operation.
Yes.
It arises from the fact that while our current president didn't have any experience in government, the current two who are on the ticket, both Honorable Mundu, they've had experiences, and both of them were provincial ministers living and governing in the rural areas within the people. So they've got that heart of the people, while he did not have. He was in a boardroom and he always boasted about him being a manager of numbers. These people are managers of people. So that gives me hope. Secondly, as I said, Mundubile was a cabinet minister level at the level of leader of the opposition. He was chief whip and others. So they're not coming to this completely as greenhorns. There are people who have had some some contact with governance. They are both very well educated and they are accomplished people in their own right. And I think that when you combine the two, and then combine it with a third, that they have access to all of us who have been in government before.
With some sort of expertise in one area
or another. And there are many of us, as I said, who are giving this advice. I think that it will be an opportunity to transform our economy into the next level.
Do you think we will revolutionize?
I think that we will, but obviously there's always, you always have to be realistic. I have said in many times that, you know, the economy doesn't move like a bicycle. Okay, it doesn't move like a bicycle. The economy, when you have a policy reform, is like a steamship. So a bicycle, when you know, mucho vanjinga ngamachita so it moves. For an economy, when you do this, all this, it will take a while before it comes.
Before it turns.
But while it is doing that, and I'm not saying the whole 5 years, I'm saying while it is doing that, you then implement policies in the short to medium term that are able to cushion the survival of people until it yields.
Indeed.
Until it yields. So you are not just boasting about numbers, you are boasting about people's welfare. And that is what Honorable Munduwile was saying to those people in Nyimba, that while we understand that there are economic parameters and dynamics operating at a different level, we will ensure that we don't remain at that level, but we will ensure that there are also policies which go towards ensuring that you are surviving and living in the short to medium term.
Indeed. Okay? Time is jealous, Mr. Lungu. I am very happy to catch up with you after our stint in diplomacy. And I hope to consult you from time to time again. But our director Rogers is keeping the clock going. But I would like, I would definitely get you to put in a last word. And when you put in that last word, as we go to this closing time, we're already beyond a minute. I would also love you to say tonight on this program, as you go out, and somebody says, Mr. Lungu, we came here downstairs because we heard you were having an interview. We're just wondering, we're seeking your advice. Can you please tell us 3 reasons why we should vote for the Brian Munduwile and Muhabi Zulu ticket, or including yourself, because you are a unity, you are an alliance. What will you say?
This country is very divided. And it is divided because the president and the people, some of the people that support him, are bent on using ethnicity as a tool for them to win back elections. One of the things why I'm supporting Honorable Brian Munduwile and Honorable Muhabi Zulu is because they are people-centered people, and they believe in the concept of one Zambia, one nation, and they have made undertaking that they will come and heal this country.
That's one.
It will be, it will be a country for everybody, from north to south, east to west, and everything in between. Indeed. That is a very fundamental issue. The second reason why I'm supporting this ticket, is because they have made it very clear. They have made it very clear that their priority will not be to boast to the IMF and to the World Bank and to other things about figures, but that they will be practical, pragmatic, and deal with real concerns of the lived experience of people. You know, and not badger us with the just GDP, with just the foreign reserves and whatever and so on. Inflation. You need a people-centered individual, and as I've said, they were working in the province, so they understand the lived experience at the practical level. Thirdly, these people believe in democracy. That is why, with all the hurdles that Brian Munduwile had to go, he won to be president of Johnson through the hoops and people belting, whatever. He still didn't impose himself. There are a lot of candidates on the ballot who nobody knows who elected them. Okay, he went through an election as Muhabi Zulu did. These people believe in democracy, and when they say we will make sure that we bring back democracy where people are not afraid, okay, people feel free. Everybody, they will bring it. Okay, so But what is important to me, my brother, is that you see, we can sit here and talk about the good things that are these manifesto.
The words,
we can sit
the
here
grammar,
and talk about
the language,
the good human nature of Brian Mundu and his candidate. Yes. We can sit here and talk about wanting to create a national state. But all of that is going to be nothing if people don't get up and vote on the day of voting. The supporters of HH in Southern Province, and I'm saying Southern Province not as a province, as an electoral block according to the listing of
as a region,
as a listing of by the ECZ.
Yes.
The supporters that support HH, they turn out 84%, 90%, and when they go to vote for him, 90% of them vote for him. Okay? If the supporters of Brian Mundu in the Eastern Province, where it is a bigger constituency than Southern Province, if they are not going to get up and vote and reach those figures of 80%, and then when they go out to vote, they will vote for Brian Mundu, there will be a discrepancy in the votes. Okay? So I always give this example. Eastern Province and Southern Province are about the same size. The Eastern Province was larger in the last election. Even now it's larger.
What are the numbers like? On top of your head.
On top of it is about,
because I remember you did an analysis once.
The difference is about 50,000 between the two. Okay? Now, but I'm going back to 2021 for a point. ECL, one of his stronghold was Eastern Province. Yeah. Okay? HH, one of his strongholds was
Southern Province. Yes.
In Eastern Province, the registered voters in 2021 was 800 and something. In Southern Province, it was 700 and something. The difference was 114. But because in Southern Province there was a voter turnout of 84%, it was 84%.
Almost 90%.
Yes. In Eastern Province, on the other hand, the voter turnout was 63%. There was a 21% difference. Okay, and then in Southern Province, the supporters of HH gave him 92% of the vote. In Eastern Province, they gave Prsdt Lungu only 54%. So, in terms of actual votes, and you can check this out.
Indeed. No, I remember your analysis.
HH got 605 actual votes in Southern Province. ECL got 340 something. I think it was half. 300.
In Eastern
literally
Province.
Half.
Yes.
Yet the province is larger, and it was a stronghold. We cannot afford to do this time.
Again.
In the support bases where Munduwile comes from, where Muhabi Zulu is domiciled, and I'm saying coming from I'm not talking about
you're talking about this as voting blocks.
I'm talking about voting blocks, and if you look at the experience, Munduwile was provincial minister for what?
For Northern Province.
For Northern Province.
Yes.
And so people know him there. So that's what I'm saying.
He's a household name.
Yes.
It's based.
Muhabi Zulu, the running mate, was provincial minister for what?
For Eastern Province.
So it is very important.
And he also comes from Malambo.
That's right. So it is very important that where you are known, where you are government, where you had accountability, that your supporters try and equal the voter turnout that our competitor has gotten. So you must try and get, it is essential that the voter turnout in the Eastern Province must be very high, not 63. That the voter turnout in
Eastern Province,
in Eastern, in Northern, in Lusaka, and in Copperbelt, everywhere where majority of people are supporting the candidature of Brian Mundu, you must get up on the 13th of August. You and your wife and your children and your neighbor and your brother and your cousin, you must tell everybody there is a responsibility that all of us have to make. Let us get out and go and vote. If you will stay home because you are upset that you will be able to deprive your candidate of a winning position. I am very sure that this election is winnable.
You're very sure?
I am very sure.
What gives you such confidence and
gusto? Because I have been in the political process for a long time, and I am able to feel and read the pulse of the population. And what
so you see it swinging towards...
not even swinging. I already know that a significant proportion of the Zambian population believe that the current president has not been able to achieve the things he undertook to them. And many of them have moved away already, apart those who have stayed with him for personal and maybe other reasons,
Indeed.
Which we all understand.
Yeah.
But I do know that in Lusaka, in the Copper Belt, in Kabwe and whatever, people have been saying we are treated as if we are children. They don't care about us. He can go to one area and say, give me all the votes, but those people there, give him zero. So if you are saying this to people in Eastern Province, I'm an Easterner, I come to the people in Eastern Province and say to them, you people from the Eastern Province, you must give me 100% and give those other people from Southern Province zero. What do I think the people in Southern Province are thinking?
The same way.
Yeah, no, or what are they thinking? They're saying, but if this person is saying that the only important people are his Easterners, then what about us? It is like a white man in the United States going to the ghetto and say to them, me, I represent a white interest. But you black folks must vote for me anyway. And then you go to, you must vote for me anyway. And then you go to your white folks and say, you white people must only vote for me and give those black people zero. What do you expect the black people to think like? Now, again, I have said before that these issues I'm discussing here, they are liable of charging me with hate. I have no hate. I'm quoting...
Just giving a scientific political view. I think in the States they call it the philosophy of, the Dems and the Reds. There's the red states and there's the blue states.
That is right.
There's nothing hateful about that.
There's nothing hateful about it.
In fact, when somebody from the Reds win blue, they say the Blues, the Reds have flipped
that is right. Yes, and there's some states
this has been traditionally a blue state. Yes. So I don't think there is
there isn't any.
What you are saying.
I have never been a tribalist in my life, but being long time in politics, I do know that political players like to abuse people by appealing
I know this
to their
is an important one.
Yeah.
So the director kept saying, we gotta. No, please do not apologize. Sometimes I don't even realize how fast time goes myself. So fellow Zambians, when you are speaking to somebody as eloquent as Mr. Muhabi Lungu, it's very hard to stop this horse from bolting out of the barn. But for tonight, this Monday evening, few weeks remaining, I think maybe 5 weeks remaining before we go to the polls, I hope you found his education useful, and I hope you can use some of the directions and some of the wisdom that he has shared. From me, your host, Anthony Mukwita, I would like to say God bless you until we see you again next Monday. Goodbye.
Thank you.
That's good. Yeah, it's amazing stuff. And I like the way you were able to move from this one topic to another, but connected to